be if it is, but I decided I'll read it today. And it's about climate education in high schools, and in the Headwaters program this past spring I was part of a group that did a study essentially looking at how effective climate education really is in schools, and the consensus was that there isn't enough of it. Education is supposed to be preparing youth to face the climate crisis. Students say it's not. A new study shows 87% of UGDSB high school students find that the curriculum is lacking in environmental education. I've heard it too many times. It's usually a speech about overpopulation, ocean acidification, severe water and food shortages, natural disasters of monstrous magnitudes, and we've flim-flammed the atmosphere with hairspray, and the bees are dying, and California is going to fall into the ocean, and we don't have a way to fix it, and the solutions we do have aren't being implemented, and even if they were, it's probably too late already, which is then followed by a reminder to turn off the lights. The bell rings, class ends. This June, I joined 5 other grade 12 students in the Headwaters program to anonymously survey 100 UGDSB secondary school students about their experiences with environmental education, and the consensus was that there wasn't enough. Students described their education as disappointing and dangerous, everything I know I learned from programs and my own research. Other responses included, without a healthy world to live on, all other issues don't matter, and my grade 10 education was watching Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary. The results consisted of a cacophony of frustration that students felt that their education had not prepared them to face their futures. When someone doesn't want to discuss something, it doesn't mean that they don't care. It could mean that they care so much that to face the issue would be too painful. We need safe spaces for youth, for all ages, to talk openly about climate anxiety. In particular, many feel that this area was insufficiently covered. 49% of students felt that their classroom was a safe space to discuss climate anxiety, and only 10% of students were given a satisfactory opportunity to discuss climate anxiety in class, and 82% of students reported not being given adequate resources to cope with climate anxiety. Another student said that the curriculum doesn't address a wide variety of climate issues and their impacts on all parts of society, including political, economical, and social. Human rights crises, disproportionate impacts on people of color, indigenous cultural assimilation, war, and famine are all impacts of climate change. National Geographic published an article in 2020 with the headline reading, "In Afghanistan, Climate Change Complicates Future Prospects for Peace," that explored how warming will further fuel natural disasters, mass displacement, child marriages, and conflict. Another article from this past spring titled, "A Grave Humanitarian Crisis is Unfolding in Ethiopia. I never saw hell before, but now I have," spoke of the past few years, already made difficult by the effects of climate change. It's like doomsday. First came the frozen rains, then the locusts, then the war. Individual action does matter, but the reality remains that we're not going to save ourselves from impending doom by recycling. The idea of the individual carbon footprint was a term coined by British Petroleum in a media campaign attempting to take the focus off big businesses and place the weight on the individual. It is true that the climate crisis is largely driven by mammoth corporations. We must hold them accountable. We must hold our politicians and governments accountable. But the heart of activism belongs to the individual. The seeds of change are planted in sadness and anger and frustration and hope, often in the shadow of powerful forces and establishments that oppose their growth. But we've seen these seeds germinate. It is a strange piece of geological poetry that is the pieces of our past that are being used to destroy our future. But we can use the past as a different kind of fuel. We have seen movements grow in the face of adversity, how people can band together. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us how the world can mobilize. The severity of the climate emergency should be reflected in the degree to which it is prioritized in the school system. I was fortunate enough to have had a science teacher in grade 10 who did care, who recognized the magnitude of what was contained in the cataclysmic reports of the effects of the Anthropocene. But the unit was still condensed, cut down, and diluted. There simply wasn't enough time. Unfortunately, the planet seems to have the same problem. These survey results highlighted many of the shortcomings of the current state of local climate education. The school board was largely responsive, and board employees we interacted with were concerned and interested in how to amend local climate education. But the survey also highlighted how passionate young people were about saving their futures. People are afraid, but they also care, and I think that means more. Margaret Atwood wrote that in the end, we will all become stories. All we're asking for is a chance to tell ours. Here's to hoping that it will be one of change. Thank you.